Okay, on to Module 9, installing and configuring Active Directory Federation services. This is a complicated lab, but I'll talk my way through it here, and hopefully it'll make some sense to you. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be installing Active Directory Federation services, then we're going to be creating a standalone Federation server, then we're going to be creating and configuring a sample WIF application, implementing relying party trusts, configuring the Active Directory claims provider trust, and then we're going to get on to the lab questions. Now, the servers that we're going to wind up needing here is DC1, Server 1, Server 2. And for the scenario here, this is the important part. So, Active Directory Federation Services allows administrators to configure single sign-on for web-based applications across a single organization or multiple organizations without requiring a user to remember multiple usernames and passwords. Now, we're going to be doing our initial work here on LAN Server 1, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be installing IAS, and we're going to wind up installing Active Directory Federation services. And if you remember this from our service accounts, we're going to be creating a service account. This service account is going to do the querying to our Active Directory server, which is DC1, to pass all the information for the username and passwords, and then return that information back to the server for authentication. Now, we could use the standard one that's built into Internet Information Services, which is the I_user, but everybody winds up using that by default in IAS, and it's very insecure. So that's why we're going to wind up using this one for extra security, especially since it's tying into our Active Directory. Okay, so here we're going to open up a PowerShell title. And we're going to run it as administrator. And we're going to create our service account here. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it in here. And there's the GUID for our service account. Now if that's done, we can close this. The next thing we're going to wind up doing is we're going to be adding the roles and features that we're required to at this point. Next. Okay, so what we're going to wind up installing is the Active Directory Federation services and IAS. So here's Federation Services, and down here is IAS. We're going to add the features. This is probably going to take a few minutes. Now, we're not actually asking for anything at this point further than that. So we're just going to keep clicking through till we get to install. We'll let this finish off and continue on. Okay, so the features have been installed, and copy screenshot over this text. Once that's done, click close. Now we're going to create a standalone Federation server. So we're going to go on to Server 1, and we're going to go into Internet Information Services Manager. Now, here on the Internet Information Services Manager console, we click here, which is the server, and then we're going to go into the server certificates, which is right over here. Now we've double clicked, we've got our server certificates. Now we have to go to the right side pane under Actions and create self-signed certificate. So this is the Actions pane, and we're going to create a self-signed certificate. Now the wizard's popped up, Okay. The self-signed certificate dialog box, specify the friendly name page, specify a friendly name for the certificate text box, and this is the friendly name that we're going to need. I'm not going to include the little period here at the end for adatum.com because it's not needed and we'll mess things up. So no extra spaces, that's exactly what we need. And we're going to click OK. Now we have our server certificate for LON SVR1. Now, in Server Manager, click on the yellow triangle with the black exclamation point and configure the Federation Services service on this server. That's here. Configure the Federation Services. Move this up. Okay, so on the welcome page, first Federation Server and the Federation Server farm is already selected, and click Next. So create the first Federation Server and a Federation Server farm. Next. We are logged in as Adatum Administrator, and we're going to keep that. Go Next. SSL Certificate. So we're going to select the SSL certificate we just created, which is this one. That's the friendly name that we used. And for the Federation Service display name, we're going to put in Adatum Corporation here. And once that's done, we click Next. Now, create a Group Managed Service account. For here, we already created the service account, so Adatum ADFS. And click Next. Specify the configuration database. We're going to use the create a database on the server using the Windows internal database. Next. So review options. Server is going to be configured as a primary server, is the new ADDS farm, ADFS farm. ADFS configuration will be stored on the Windows internal database. That's all good. And Federation Service will be configured to run as Adatum ADFS $. Once that's done, we'll click Next. And we're going to go through the prerequisites check. Okay, and we're going to go click Configure. We're going to get some warnings here. Don't worry about it. So this validating SSL certificate notification, that's because it's a self-signed certificate. If it was a public certificate, then that would show up as a little green check mark. Now, a machine restart is required to complete the ADFS service configuration, and the SSL certificate subject alternative names do not support host name, cert auth LON server 1 Adatum, configure certificate authentication binding to port 49433 on the host name. Now, what it's doing here is it's installing the Windows internal database. Okay, so after what seems like an eternity, it's finally succeeded. And screenshot time. Now you've taken a screenshot. We're going to click Close, and then we're going to reboot this server. I'm just going to copy this in advance. And I'm going to log in as Adatum Administrator, not the local administrator. Okay, we're up and running. Let's open up the command prompt. Now we've selected the administrator command prompt for this. Okay, so we're going to set the SPN and on this system in the ADFS account that we created. And now we've got our object updated. So here's what's it's done. So it's all registered now. And screenshot time. Now that you have that, let's move on to closing this. And we're going to go into Tools, ADFS Management. Okay, so here I gave you guys a little bit of a warning. Okay, it may take a few minutes for the ADFS service to start up. Be patient. There we go. Now it's connected. And take a screenshot of the ADFS console at this point. So screenshot time. Okay, on to the next part of the exercise. We're going to be creating and configuring a sample WIF application. So in this exercise, we're going to install the Windows Identity Foundation SDK. That's the software development kit 4.0 so that you can install and configure a sample WIF application. Now, what we're actually doing here, like I said, if a company has some kind of application that needs to be created that's web enabled, the software developer needs the software development kit tools in order to access things. That makes his life a lot easier, or her life a lot easier. There's no sense reinventing the wheel. Since a lot of these things are pre-built in, it's just a matter of you configuring it so that they get the information they need when they program the application. And to test things out, we're just going to be using the sample WIF application. So we're going to log on to server 2 as ADATEM admin. I'm already logged in to server 2 as ADATEM admin. And on the taskbar, click File Explorer to open up the File Explorer. So I click there, and I have to go to LON DC1 software folder. So // LON-DC1. Click on software, and what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to mount this ISO file. All we have to do to mount the ISO file, so you see here we only have the C drive. I double click on this ISO, and now it's mounted as a DVD drive on this server. Nice and handy. Okay. So you'll see this gets a little bit complicated, and we're going to have to be going back and forth. Follow along as best you can, or pause and rewind if you need to. Okay, it's very important that we add all of these things. I'll show you where they are. So we're going to go Manage, Add Roles and Features. Next, next, next. Okay. Now, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to install IIS on this machine as well. So the IIS server that's running on this machine is what's hosting the application that's going to be created. The IIS that we installed on server 1 This one is always doing the authentication. Server 2 is actually going to be running the application if it winds up getting the information for the login correctly from this server. Okay, so on to this. So we're going to have to install IIS, add features, click next. Now, so we're going to have to install the IIS management tools and the IIS 6 management compatibility. So the web server role, IIS, next. Here's where we're going to go back and forth. So first thing that we need is the IIS 6 management tools. IIS 6 management. Here's the management console. Management compatibility. So we've selected this one. Now we're going to have to go into the application development section and the .NET Extensibility 3.5. So here's application development. We'll expand this. So we need the .NET Extensibility 3.5. We'll add that feature. We're going to need the .NET Extensibility 4.6. We'll add that feature. Now we're also going to have to install ASP. So that's the automated server pages. That's what the programmer is going to be programming against. And application development for ASP.NET 3.5 and ASP.NET 4.6. 3.5, add those features. 4.6, click next. Now, here we're going to have to go back to features. And we're going to have to install, make sure that these are selected. So the .NET Framework 3.5 features includes .NET 2.0 and 3.0. Yes, that is selected. The .NET Framework 4.6 features and ASP.NET 4.6. There we go. That's what we need. And the Windows Identity Foundation 3.5. So Windows Identity Foundation 3.5. And we're going to click next, 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 next until we get the Confirm Installation Selections page. Okay, so now we're at the confirmation of installation selections. Specify an alternate source path. Now, because some of the features that we're installing aren't already built into Windows and they're on the DVD, that's why we had to mount the DVD. Okay, and the ones that we need specifically, okay, are on our eDrive sources SXS. So sources SXS. So I'm just going to click here, and this gives me the path. I'm going to copy this and put it here. So here's our alternate source path, and this is the alternate source that we're going to need. Click here, and at the confirmation page, we're going to click install. Okay, so The installation has gone according to plan, and when everything's done, we click close, as in step 14. Now we have to install the Windows Identity Foundation SDK. Using the File Explorer, we're going to go back to our folder that's on DC1, and we have the Windows Identity Foundation SDK 4.0. And I'm just going to right click and go install. Run. Get back here. Alright, so here, step 15, I'm going to go next. We're going to accept the terms of the license agreement. Next. Pay attention to this path. We'll be visiting this again. C Program Files, Windows Identity Foundation SDK, version 4.0. Next, and then we're going to install. Okay, that's completed, and open README, finish. And we're just going to use the recommended settings. No, we're not online, so we're not going to be able to go there. So here is the welcome page to Microsoft Windows Identity Foundation. And it tells you a little bit about it if you want to read about it. This file is in that folder that we wound up creating during the install. It's the readme.htm if you want to ever go back to that. In the meantime, we can close this. And on to step 21. So, on the Windows Identity Foundation page, you're prompted, okay, we already did that. Close that and close the software folder. We'll close that. Now we're going to go into the Server Manager, IIS. Make this nice and big. And click on Server SVR2. In the IIS Management Console, if a message displays, do you want to get started with the web platform, stay connected to the latest, blah, blah, blah. We didn't, so no. Under the IIS section, click and then double click on server certificates. So we're having to create a server certificate here as well. So that's over here. And we're going to do it all over again, create a self-signed certificate. And we're going to have to give this one a friendly name. So we're going to call this lawn svr2.8atom.com. Get rid of the space at the end. It's a personal certificate. Okay. And here's our certificate. And on the left pane, expand sites, and then click default website. So here's sites, default website. And under the actions, select bindings. So actions, bindings. And we're going to have to add a binding. And what we're going to have to do is HTTPS, and that's on port 443. Select HTTPS. And it automatically grabbed 443. And we're going to have to select our SSL certificate that we just generated. There it is. Click OK. So now we've got our security certificate here. and screenshot of the bindings. Got that. We'll click close. And on the taskbar, we're going to go to C Program Files, x86, Windows Identity Foundation, SDK 4.0, Samples, and Quick Config. Make this a little bit bigger so you see where we're going. Program Files, x86. Then what we have to go is to the Windows Identity Foundation, SDK 4.0, and then the samples. Quick start. And using Manage STS. Now we have to double click the setup.bat file, which is included here. That's a Windows batch file. The file names. So there's our setup.bat. We'll double click on it. Claims aware web app has been created. Here it is. Awesome. Press any key to continue. I pressed any key. I've continued and it closed. Okay. Now, we're going to have to go into the Server Manager, Tools, Windows Identity Foundation Federation Utility. Close that. Windows Identity Foundation Federation Utility. Application Configuration Location. So we're going to have to plug in this information here. Paste that there. And in the application URI, we're going to have to put in this information. So on server 2, a datum, claims aware. Okay, so here's our URI location and the application configuration location. Once we have both of these in, we go click next to continue. So on the security token service page, use an existing STS. So that's the one we just created with that batch file. And we'll go browse. For x86. Windows Identity Foundation SDK 4.0, samples, quick start, using Manage STS. Okay, never mind about that. We're going to have to put it as a URL, so we'll just follow this here. And okay, here's the URL. So you can see here's the URL for the existing STS. So if you note, we're going back to server 1. This is for the authentication. Click next to continue. Alright, Certificate chain process, but terminating a root certificate which is not trusted by the trust provider. Untrusted root. Do you wish to continue? Yes, we do. This is because it's a self-signed certificate. Wait for it to do its thing. It's done its thing. Okay. So on the STS signing certificate chain validation error, disable certificate chain. All right. And no encryption. And then click next. So no encryption is the default. We'll click next. Once again, it's connecting to the back end to validate things. Okay, so here are the offered claims that are available here. And here's just some of the stuff that you can get. So what role, surname, ID, OS, what proxies. You got a few. This will make the programmer very happy. And we'll wind up clicking next. We're not configuring anything there. And on the summary page, we're going to click finish. So here's the application information. I'll just scroll through here for you. And finish. So you've successfully configured your application. Click OK. Now into step 49. Now, we're going to create an application pool. Remember what, when this installed, this was going to be the first server to serve up applications in a pool? Well, here's where we wind up configuring that. Going to Tools, we're going to go into IIS. Make that big so you can see it. Click on Server 2. And we're going to add an application pool. How do we add an application pool? We don't see it here. We can see View and View Sites. So what we have to do, it's a little hidden, is we're going to expand this, Application Pools. Now, here's our application pools that are available, and under Actions, we can go Add Application Pool. Now, we got to give our application pool a name, and the name that we're going to give it is WIF Samples. So, Windows Identity Foundation Samples, .NET CLR version 4.0, Manage Pipeline Mode is integrated, Start Application Pool immediately. That's all good. Click OK. And here's WIF Samples. So under the process model, generate pool, event log, change the load user profile from setting from false to true. Go to advanced settings. And we're going to have to wind up going down to process model. So here's process model. Load user profile is false. We're going to have to set this to true. And there we go. And click OK. Now we got that done. In the left pane, expand sites and default website. Then click Claims Aware Web App with Manage STS. So, Lawn Server 2, we'll expand sites. Here's our default website. Right click. Oh, sorry. Alright, so where's Claims Aware? There we go. And in the Actions pane, Basic Settings. Actions, Basic Settings. And edit the application dialog box, select. Default application pool, no, we're going to go with the WIF samples that we added. Now, just to explain what's going on here. When you just typed, if you go to a web browser and you type in http lawnserver2.adatum.com, it's going to come up with a default web page that's going to wind up getting displayed. That's the default website. What we're doing here is we're putting the claims aware web app as the default web page. So that's what's going to wind up coming up, and that's what we set as the default for the WIF samples. Click OK. Now we have to restart our web server. Go over here. Stop. And then we'll start. Another way of doing it, we can do it here as well, is under actions, we can just go restart. And that does exactly the same thing. Now, on to implementing relying party trusts. So we're going to go back to lawn server 1. And we're going to have to put in this web page. So on server 1, copy web page, use recommended security, yeah, that's good. And here's the URL that we have to put in. So on server 1, we're going to connect to the default web service that we just configured on lawn server 2. You're about to view pages over secure connection. Yep. Now it's going to spin around, spin around, spin around, and spin around until it fails. I'll explain why in a minute. Okay, so here we are. There's a problem with the security website security certificate. Remember that the security certificate that we created in IIS on both the servers was self-signed. It's not trusted, and that's why we're getting this. And we're going to go continue this website, which is by default not recommended, but in this case it is. And we're going to click OK again. It's going to spin around, spin around, spin around. And eventually we get this. Now, here's what we have to do. We're going to have to take this security certificate that's offered up by IIS on server 2, and we're going to have to import it into the trust. And here's how we wind up doing that. Okay, so we've done this part, and here, what we're going to have to do is this. Close, and this gives us our XML. If we see this, we know we're on the right path. Now here we see certificate error. We're going to click on the little red shield here, and then we're going to go view certificates. Okay, so here's the certificate, and we're going to go install certificate. And we're going to install the certificate for the local machine. That way there, it doesn't matter who's logged in, they're going to get this security certificate. Next. And we're going to place the all certificates in the following store. Go browse. And the one that we're going to need, place all certificates in the following store. And trusted root certification authorities. So trusted root certification authorities. Click OK. Next. Then finish. and then we can click OK. So now we've grabbed the security certificate from LAN server 2 on LAN server 1, and we put it to the trusted certificate store. At this point, we can close Internet Explorer. And next, okay. So we're going to go into ADDF management and then go into relying party trusts. Here's relying party trusts. Okay, and now we're going to go start Windows PowerShell, and we're going to put in this ugly little guy here. Once again, I'm running as administrator. Okay, so we're going to add ADFS relying party trusts. The name is the WIF sample application, and the metadata URL that we're going to be grabbing here is on server 2A datum, claims aware, STS, Federation data, 2007-2006, Federation metadata.xml. Now, when I click on or press enter, we shouldn't see any red, and everything should be good if we followed all the steps correctly up to this point. And there we go. Now we have to go back to the ADFS console and press F5, do a refresh, and here's our WIF sample app that's added. Now, here we're going to have to go under Actions, Edit Access Control Policy. We're going to go Permit Everybody. So this is kind of like the security settings that we normally do for NTFS. Apply OK. And here's where we wind up taking a screenshot of the console. Okay, so on LAN server 1 at the ADFS console, claims provider trusts. Click there. And we're going to add a rule. Oh, sorry. Here we go. All right. So, in case you missed that, claims provider trusts. Then over here, edit claim rule. And we're going to add transform claim rule wizard to select the rule template page. Under the claim rule template, select LDAP attributes as claims already selected. So we'll add rule. Send LDAP attributes as claims. We're going to go next. And we're going to give this a name, outbound LDAP attributes rule. So now we got a readable name that we have some idea what this actually is. And so the attribute store, we're going to select Active Directory. And then we're going to plug in these 3 or 6 bits of information here. So the first one, email addresses. And that will be an email address. The next one, we're going to select user principal name. And that translates over to the UPN, which is the user principal name. And the last one is display name name. Display name and name. Okay, so just like here. Once that's done, we'll click Finish. Normally do apply and OK. And now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go over here and we're going to go local server. Now see this IE enhanced security configuration? That's what winds up giving all the warnings and adding, and it's a real pain in the butt. So you have the ability to turn it on or off. We're going to turn it off. Okay, so making sure that Internet Explorer is closed, which it is. Now we're going to open up Internet Explorer and we're going to put in this particular path. Copy that. Open IE, put in this path, and enter. Spinning around, spinning around. Aha! Okay, so connect to launchserver1.8atom.com. We're going to put 8atom administrator. And put in our password. And click OK. And voila! Here's what you need a screenshot of. And believe it or not, all of these steps are leading to this wonderful page. So is the user authenticated? True. The name, since administrator doesn't actually have a name, that's why there's nothing filled in here. And claims for our iClaims identity is our token authentication method and our authentication assistant. This may not seem terribly exciting to you, but if you are a programmer trying to connect using domain credentials, this would be very exciting for you. This means you have something you can actually work with. Okay, so this concludes this particular lab. I'll let you guys get on to the questions for it.